Some new info now on taxes. Republican House and Senate leaders may not be on the same page when it comes to whether tax reform needs to be revenue neutral. Charlie Gasparino, our senior correspondent, is here with some details on this. What's going on?
Well, I mean, this is a moving target, just so everybody knows.
Yep.
And we're getting this from our sources at the White House, some of my congressional sources. And this could be key if it does turn out this way. What we understand is that at least the impression they're getting from Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, is that he's softening himself, is softening on the necessity or the condition that any tax bill needs to be revenue neutral, meaning it needs to be paid for itself through countervailing cuts or closing of loopholes.
So he'd go for a tax cut, growth pays for the tax cut.
What we understand is that he is starting to soften on that condition. Now, we should point out, McConnell's office will not comment on this. They referred us to his statements over the past 3 months where he's been pretty steadfast, saying it must be revenue neutral. But from what we understand, and we're getting this from our sources in the White House, the Trump White House, also congressional sources, he's starting to soften on that. Now, what that exactly means, I cannot tell you. You do know that if it's not revenue neutral, then you need Democratic votes to get to have 60, so you can avoid the filibuster and all the stuff that.
Well, if it's true, he's not going to want something like that getting out because it would, you know, the negotiation.
Well, it is getting out now because the White House is dealing with the Senate, they're dealing with the House, and we should just point out that Kevin Brady, the House Ways and Means Chairman, Paul Ryan, the House Speaker, they remained pretty steadfastly. They want this thing to be revenue neutral, at least as they are now. But we are seeing some cracks in that. Now, how that all plays out, your next guest is going to be interesting. He can tell you about how the sort of dynamic works from there in negotiating a tax bill if it doesn't have to be revenue neutral, and whether this, you know, McConnell does indeed cave on this one key aspect.
Well, you're talking about Congressman Issa. I'm going to bring him in just a moment. He's our next guest, Congressman Darrell Issa. But let me ask you one other question about this. I could see where you're going with Mitch McConnell kind of considering this, as you say, or maybe
at least that's the impression he's given out. That
he's softening, right? But you can't see Paul Ryan moving in that direction just because of how he feels about that. I mean, he's a true believer in, he's a deficit hawk, right?
Right. He's got a raucous, sort of convoluted Republican majority.
The Raucous Caucus?
Yeah, he's got the Freedom Caucus, who are more supply-side oriented, who believe in tax cuts, grow the economy, and ultimately reduce deficits in the long run. So he's got a coalition he has to hold together on his own. So who knows what happens in the end? I mean, this is founding fathers created this mess, so you know things didn't change fast, or they did. When they did change, it changed after negotiations.
You're essentially blaming Alexander Hamilton.
I am. I'm blaming George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, the whole crew, but because they gave us the system. But by the way, it works better than anything else.
It's the best. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said that too.